Billionaire mother freezes at airport seeing her ex-husband with their twin daughters after 5 years. The moment Ramona Tate saw her daughters' faces through that airport glass, her billion-dollar empire meant absolutely nothing. She stood there, briefcase slipping from her fingers, watching a man kneel down to tie a little girl's shoelace. A man she hadn't seen in 5 years. The father of the children she abandoned when they were 48 hours old. He looked up. Their eyes met. And then he said the words that would haunt her forever. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to just show up and watch from a distance like we're some kind of museum exhibit. They didn't want to see you disappear, but that happened. They needed you to stay." And standing beside him, a little girl with dark hair and eyes too old for her face whispered, "Is that her, Dad? Is that our mom?" Grant didn't answer. He just took both girls by the hand and walked away, leaving Ramona standing in the middle of O'Hare International Airport, surrounded by strangers, more alone than she had ever been in her entire life. Have you ever made a decision that haunted you every single day? A choice so painful you built walls around your heart just to avoid facing it. Today those walls were about to shatter. Right here, in the middle of a crowded airport, in front of the family Ramona walked away from 5 years ago. What would you do if you came face to face with the life you abandoned? If you've ever struggled with a choice you couldn't take back, hit that like button right now. You're not alone. And subscribe to Mr. Hearthline Stories, because this journey is just beginning. Trust me, you need to see how this unfolds. Let me take you back to where it all started. November rain in Chicago. The kind that doesn't fall so much as hover in the air. Fine mist clinging to glass, blurring the boundaries between inside and out, between then and now, between who you were and who you've become. Ramona Tate moved through Terminal 3 like she always did. Purposeful, unreachable, a woman whose time was measured in millions, whose decisions shaped skylines, whose name opened doors in Singapore and Vancouver and Dubai. At 41, she had built Verdant Horizon from a sketch on a napkin into the most influential sustainable architecture firm in North America. Buildings breathed because of her vision. Cities transformed because of her designs. Magazines called her a genius. Forbes called her unstoppable. But right now, at Gate B-7 in O'Hare International Airport, Ramona Tate had stopped moving entirely. Her briefcase hung loose in her hand. Her perfectly pressed coat suddenly felt too tight. Her breath caught somewhere between her lungs and her throat, trapped like a bird behind glass. Because through the transparent partition separating international gates from domestic arrivals, she saw him. Grant Holloway. He was crouched low, fingers working patiently on the laces of a child's yellow rain boot. His hair was longer than she remembered, streaked with early gray at the temples. His canvas jacket was frayed at the cuffs. His jeans were faded, but those hands, patient, deliberate, careful. She would know those hands in any decade, in any life, in any version of reality. He stood slowly, steadying himself against a pillar for just a moment. The movement was subtle. Most people wouldn't notice. But Ramona noticed everything about Grant Holloway, even after 5 years, even after everything. Beside him stood 2 girls, mirror images in mismatched raincoats. One wore red with yellow polka dots. The other wore blue with a hood shaped like a frog. They couldn't have been more than 7 years old. Piper and Wren. The names hit Ramona like a physical blow. The daughters she had last held when they were 48 hours old. When they were tiny and screaming and perfect and terrifying. When she had looked down at their faces and felt nothing. Nothing but a vast, echoing emptiness where love was supposed to live. One of the girls clutched a sketchbook to her chest, protective, like it held secrets. The other was laughing, pointing at something beyond the glass, her whole face lit up with joy. They were beautiful. They were strangers. The intercom crackled overhead. Flight 447 to Portland now boarding at Gate B-7. Portland. Of course. Grant had always wanted to move there. Ramona had been the one who insisted on Chicago, on proximity to investors, on the relentless, exhausting climb to the top. And now he was leaving. Taking their daughters to the city he'd always dreamed of. Building the life he'd always wanted. Without her, the girl with the sketchbook, Piper maybe, she was taller by about an inch, tugged on Grant's sleeve. He bent down to listen, his whole body angling toward her with the kind of attention Ramona used to receive from him. A lifetime ago. Then he looked up, and their eyes met through 2 panes of glass and 5 years of wreckage. He didn't smile, didn't frown, didn't gasp or freeze or show any sign of surprise. He just recognized her. The way you recognize a scar you've stopped noticing until someone touches it and the pain comes flooding back. For 3 seconds, maybe 4, they stared at each other. Ramona's phone vibrated in her pocket. Her assistant was texting. The private jet to Copenhagen was waiting. The keynote speech on carbon-neutral urban design. The future she had built, brick by careful brick, while her daughters learned to walk and talk and exist without her. Grant gathered the girls closer, said something Ramona couldn't hear, then turned toward their gate. He was leaving. Again. No, she was the one who left. Ramona's feet finally remembered how to move. But not toward Copenhagen. Not toward her assistant waiting at the International Lounge with an almond milk latte and a tablet full of bullet points. She moved toward a bathroom, locked herself in the furthest stall, pressed her forehead against the cool metal door, and for the first time in 5 years she let herself shatter. They're not babies anymore. The words came out in a whisper, barely a sound, but they broke something inside her chest that had been holding together through sheer force of will. She had missed everything. First steps, first words, first days of school, first nightmares, first triumphs, first everything. And for what? Ramona pulled out her phone with shaking hands, opened her messages, scrolled to a name she hadn't deleted. Grant Holloway. The last text was from 5 years ago. From him. Please, come home. The girls need you. I need you. She had never responded. Her fingers moved across the screen now, clumsy, desperate. It's me. I saw you. I saw them. She stared at the message for a full minute, then deleted it. Typed again. I'm sorry. Deleted. Can we talk? Deleted. Finally, she typed nothing. Just sat there in an airport bathroom stall, surrounded by the sound of flushing toilets and running water and strangers living their ordinary lives, and tried to remember how to breathe. 45 minutes later, Ramona walked out of O'Hare International Airport into November rain. Her assistant had called 6 times. Her board chairman had left 2 voicemails. The Copenhagen conference would start without her. She didn't care. She stood on the curb, rain soaking through her $800 coat, and pulled up flight information on her phone. Portland. Next available. There was a seat on a flight leaving in 90 minutes. Ramona booked it without thinking, without planning, without the careful, methodical decision-making process that had built her empire. For once in her life, she was just following the pull in her chest that said, go now, before you lose them forever. The flight to Portland took 4 hours. Ramona didn't sleep, didn't work, didn't even look out the window. She just sat in seat 12A, hands folded in her lap, and tried to figure out what the hell she was going to say. Hi, I'm your mother. I left you when you were 2 days old because I was broken. I'm still broken. But I'm here now. No, I know I have no right to be here, but I saw you at the airport and I couldn't get on my plane. Worse, I made the biggest mistake of my life, and I don't know how to fix it, but I have to try. Maybe. By the time the plane landed at Portland International, Ramona had rehearsed and discarded approximately 400 opening lines. None of them were right. None of them could possibly be enough. She rented a car, checked into a hotel downtown, sat on the edge of a bed in a room that looked exactly like every other hotel room she'd stayed in over the past 5 years. Anonymous, temporary, belonging to no one. Then she made a call. The woman who answered had a voice like gravel and silk. Ramona Tate. I was wondering when you'd reach out again. The private investigator's name was Jordan Reeves. Ramona had hired her 3 years ago during a moment of weakness, a night when the awards and accolades felt particularly hollow, when she'd wanted to know if her daughters were okay, if Grant was managing, if they were happy without her. Jordan had sent a report. Minimal, just the basics. Grant and the girls were living in Chicago still at that time. He was working as a freelance botanical illustrator. The girls were healthy, thriving even. Ramona had read the report once, then locked it in her safe and tried to forget it existed. But she hadn't forgotten Jordan's number. I need an updated report, Ramona said. Full details. I know they moved to Portland. I need to know where. I need to know everything. Jordan was quiet for a moment. You sure about this? No, Ramona said honestly. But I'm doing it anyway. The report arrived by secure email 6 hours later. Ramona sat in her hotel room, rain streaking down the windows, and opened the file. Grant Holloway, age 42. Current occupation, freelance botanical illustrator. Clients include Royal Horticultural Society, National Geographic, Oregon, Conservation Network, various nonprofit environmental organizations. Annual income, $48,000. Ramona's chest tightened. She made more than that in a week, sometimes in a day. Residence, 1847 Ash Street, Laurelhurst neighborhood. 3-bedroom bungalow. Monthly rent, $2,100. Landlord notes tenant is quiet, pays on time, maintains exceptional garden. Garden. Of course, Grant had a garden. He'd always wanted one. Their apartment in Chicago hadn't had space for more than a few pots on the fire escape. But Grant had filled those pots with herbs and flowers and vegetables, tending them like they were precious. She scrolled down. Medical status. Her hand froze on the mouse. Diagnosed 14 months ago with early-onset Parkinson's disease. Currently managing symptoms with medication, carbidopa-levodopa, physical therapy twice weekly. Prognosis, gradual progression. Tremor, primarily in right hand. Some days more severe than others. The words blurred. Parkinson's. Grant had Parkinson's. And she hadn't known. Hadn't been there. Hadn't held his hand through the diagnosis or the fear or the adjustment to a future that suddenly looked different than he'd planned. Ramona kept reading, even though every word felt like glass. Daughters, Piper Holloway and Wren Holloway, age 7. Second grade at Laurelhurst Elementary, both described by teachers as bright, creative, well-adjusted. Piper shows exceptional artistic talent. Wren demonstrates advanced skills in pattern recognition and natural sciences. There were photos attached. Ramona clicked on the first one. Grant stood in what looked like a small music room, helping a young boy position his hands on a keyboard. He was smiling, tired, but genuine. His right hand rested on the piano, and even in the still image, Ramona could see the slight tremor. Next photo, the garden. Even in November, it was extraordinary. Winterberries clustered like small flames against dark branches. Hellebores bloomed in defiant whites and purples. And in the center, a small greenhouse, its glass panels fogged with warmth. Next photo, Ramona's breath stopped. Grant asleep on a couch. Both girls asleep against him, one on each shoulder. Their faces peaceful, trusting, safe. There were mugs on the coffee table. One said "Best Dad Ever" in child-painted letters. The other just had a chipped heart on it. Ramona stared at that photo until her eyes burned. This was the life she had walked away from. This was what she had missed. She closed the laptop. Stood. Paced the small hotel room like a caged animal. Then she grabbed her coat and keys and drove to Laurelhurst. The house on Ash Street was exactly as the report described. Small, neat, unremarkable except for the garden. Even in the dark, even in the rain, Ramona could see it was special. She parked across the street, turned off the engine, and watched. Lights were on in the front windows. She could see movement inside. Shapes passing by, a life happening in real time. Her daughters were in there, 10 feet away, closer than they'd been in 5 years. Ramona's hand moved to the door handle. But she didn't open it. What was she going to do? Walk up and knock. "Hi, you don't know me, but I gave birth to you and then abandoned you, and now I'd like to be part of your life." She sat in the dark car, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to find courage that felt impossible. Then the front door opened. Grant emerged first, moving carefully down the porch steps. Then the girls, both in rubber boots, both carrying thermoses. They were going somewhere. Ramona slouched lower in her seat, suddenly terrified of being seen before she was ready. Piper walked slightly ahead, independent, confident. Wren stayed close to Grant's side, her hand occasionally reaching for his. They headed down the sidewalk toward the corner. And then Wren stopped, turned, looked directly at Ramona's car. Not searching, not scanning, just knowing. Grant followed her gaze. Ramona stopped breathing. For 5 full seconds, Grant stared at her rental car, at her silhouette barely visible through rain and tinted glass. He said something to the girls. They went back inside. Then he crossed the wet lawn, hands in his pockets, until he stood beside her window. Ramona sat frozen. Grant knocked, Gently. 2 taps. She rolled down the window with shaking hands. "You're not very subtle," he said. His voice. God, his voice. She had forgotten how it sounded. Warm and rough and familiar. "I didn't mean to," she started. "Yes, you did." He glanced back at the house. "What do you want, Ramona?" "I don't know." He almost smiled. "That's the most honest thing you've said in years." Silence. Rain drummed on the car roof. Ramona could smell wet earth and something else. Lavender, maybe. From his garden. "They don't know who you are," Grant said quietly. "I told them their mother was brilliant and broken, and that she left because staying would have destroyed her. I didn't tell them your name. I didn't show them pictures. I wanted them to decide if they wanted to know you. When they were old enough to choose." Ramona's throat closed. "Are they old enough?" "I don't know." Grant looked at her fully for the first time. "You look exactly the same." "So do you, liar." He held up his right hand. It trembled slightly. "I've got Parkinson's." "Did your investigator tell you that?" "Yes. And you came anyway." "I came because I saw you at the airport. I saw them. And I realized I've spent 5 years building a life that means nothing." Grant was quiet for a long moment. Then he stepped back from the car. "There's a cafe on Division Street. Rosewood. Tomorrow. 3 p.m. Come if you mean it. Don't come if you're just passing through." He walked back to the house without waiting for an answer. Ramona sat in her car until the lights in the windows went out one by one, until the street was dark and quiet, and she was alone again. Then she drove back to her hotel, went up to her room, and didn't sleep at all. Rosewood Cafe smelled like cardamom and old books and the kind of coffee that takes itself too seriously. Ramona arrived at 2:40, 20 minutes early. She ordered nothing, just sat in the back corner where she could see the door and tried to keep her hands from shaking. At 3:07, Grant walked in. Alone. "They're at art class," he said, sitting across from her. "I wanted to talk first." "Okay, why did you leave?" The question she had rehearsed 1,000 answers for. But sitting across from him, with his tired eyes and trembling hand, and the weight of 5 years between them, she found only the truth. "I looked at them in the hospital," she began. Her voice was so low he had to lean in to hear. "And I felt empty. Not sad, not scared, just hollow, like someone had scooped out everything that made me human and left a shell." Grant's face remained still, listening. "The doctor said postpartum depression, gave me pills, but it was deeper than that." Ramona's hands twisted together in her lap. "I would stand over their cribs at night and think I could hurt them, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't feel anything stopping me. There was no instinct, no maternal bond, just this terrible void and these 2 perfect babies who deserved so much better than what I could give them." "Did you try," Grant asked, "to get help?" "For 3 weeks. I took the pills. I went to therapy. I pretended I was getting better." Ramona looked up, met his eyes. "But every time I held them, I felt like I was drowning. Like if I stayed, I would pull all of you under with me. So, you left." "So I left." She said it like a confession, like a crime. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd get help and come back. But days became weeks, became months, and the gap felt impossible to cross. So I just kept building, built a company instead of a family, built towers instead of trust, built a whole empire on top of the hole where my heart was supposed to be. Grant pulled something from his jacket pocket, a small photograph, worn at the edges. He slid it across the table. Ramona picked it up with shaking hands. It was her, 7 months pregnant, asleep on their old couch, hand resting on her belly. The light was golden. She looked peaceful, happy. "I kept this," Grant said quietly, "because I needed to remember that version of you, the one who wanted this, the one who was just scared." Ramona couldn't speak. Tears fell onto the photograph, blurring the image. "I was so angry at you," Grant continued. "For years, I would put the girls to bed and imagine what I'd say if you ever came back. How I'd tell you exactly what your leaving did to us, to them, to me. And now," Ramona whispered, "now I'm just tired." Grant's right hand trembled against the table. "I have Parkinson's. My hands shake. Some days I can't draw, can't button my shirt, can't open jars or tie shoes or do 100 little things I used to take for granted. The girls help. Piper learned to knot ties when she was 6 because I couldn't do mine anymore. Ren opens all my medication bottles because the childproof caps defeat me now. I'm so sorry. I'm not telling you this for pity. Grant leaned forward. I'm telling you because time is shorter than I thought. And if you want to know them, really know them, it has to start now. Not next year. Not when you've built enough buildings or made enough money or feel ready. Now. How? Ramona asked. How do I even start? Slowly. Grant stood up. Saturday. The girls and I volunteer at the Northeast Community Garden. Noon. Wear old clothes. Come and work beside us. Don't make it a big thing. Just show up. And then we'll see. He left the photograph on the table. Ramona sat there long after he'd gone, staring at the image of who she used to be. Saturday arrived cold and clear. Ramona stood in front of her hotel mirror wearing brand new jeans she'd bought at a department store last night. The tags were still attached. She'd also bought work boots, a plain sweatshirt, gardening gloves. Everything was stiff and obviously new. She looked like she was wearing a costume, which, in a way, she was. The costume of a woman who showed up, who got her hands dirty, who chose her children over her empire. She drove to the Northeast Portland Community Garden with her heart in her throat. The garden was a patchwork of raised beds and hand-painted signs and people who clearly belonged here. Ramona did not belong here, but she got out of the car anyway. Grant was already there, kneeling beside a bed of winter kale. He wore an old flannel shirt and jeans with actual dirt stains, the kind that came from years of use, not 24 hours. And beside him, working with small trowels and serious concentration, were Piper and Ren. Ramona walked toward them slowly, like approaching a wild thing that might bolt. Grant saw her first, nodded once, then said something to the girls. They both turned. Piper's expression was unreadable, cautious, measuring. Her dark eyes swept over Ramona from head to toe, taking in every detail. Ren's eyes went wide behind her glasses, then immediately down, like looking directly at Ramona was too much. Hi, Ramona said. Stupid. Inadequate. But the only word that would come out. This is Ramona, Grant said simply. She's going to help today. No explanation, no grand revelation. No, this is your mother who abandoned you. Just presence. Ren stepped forward hesitantly, held out a trowel without looking up. The compost pile needs turning. Okay, Ramona said, taking the tool carefully. Show me. For 2 hours, they worked, mostly in silence. Ramona turned compost until her shoulders ached and her back screamed and her hands blistered even inside the new gloves. She learned the difference between weeds and winter herbs, though she promptly forgot again. She listened to Piper explain the nitrogen cycle with scientific precision that would have impressed Ramona's engineers. She watched Ren collect fallen leaves and arrange them by color gradient, creating a pattern that was oddly beautiful. At one point, Grant's hand started trembling badly. He dropped his pruning shears. They clattered against the raised bed frame. Piper picked them up without comment, finished the cut he'd started, branches falling away cleanly, then handed the shears back to him. Dad, you've got to take your meds on time, she said. Not scolding, just factual. We talked about this. I know, baby. I forgot this morning. I put them by your coffee. Piper's voice was patient. Older than 7. You were supposed to see them. I was distracted. Piper glanced at Ramona. Yeah, I noticed. The exchange was so practiced, so full of quiet competence and love, and a child carrying responsibilities she shouldn't have to carry. Ramona had to turn away, pretend to examine the compost, because if she didn't, she was going to start crying right there in the middle of the garden. As they were packing up, Ren approached Ramona. She held something small in her cupped hands. I made this for you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ramona looked down. A tiny origami crane, folded from green paper, perfect and delicate. It's beautiful, Ramona said. Thank you. In Japan, Ren continued, still not meeting Ramona's eyes. They say if you fold 1,000 cranes, you get a wish. I've folded 743 so far. Ramona knelt down to Ren's level. What are you wishing for? Ren finally looked up, met Ramona's eyes directly. Her gaze was clear and devastating. That you stay long enough for me to finish. The words hit Ramona like a freight train. She closed her fingers carefully around the paper crane. I'll stay, she whispered. I promise. Promises are easy, Piper said from behind them. Staying is hard. Ramona turned. Piper stood with her arms crossed, dirt smudged across her cheek, looking far too knowing for a 7-year-old. You're right, Ramona said. Staying is much harder, but I'm going to do it anyway. We'll see, Piper said. Then Grant called that it was time to go, and just like that, Ramona's first real moment with her daughters was over. But as they walked toward the parking area, Ren turned back and waved. Just a small movement. Barely there. Ramona waved back. It was the smallest thing, but it felt like everything. That night, Ramona sat in her hotel room and looked at the origami crane. She placed it carefully on the nightstand. Then she pulled out her laptop and composed an email to her board of directors. Effective immediately, I am stepping back from daily operations of Verdant Horizon. I will remain as a consulting partner, but I am relocating to Portland and will be working remotely going forward. She read it 3 times, then hit send before she could change her mind. Her phone rang 30 seconds later. Her board chairman. She didn't answer. Within an hour, she had 12 voicemails, 43 emails, and 3 text messages from her assistant asking if she'd been hacked. Ramona turned off her phone. Then she lay in bed, staring at a paper crane, and tried to figure out how to become the person her daughters needed her to be. The days that followed fell into a pattern. Every Saturday, Ramona showed up at the community garden. She turned compost. She pulled weeds. She listened to Piper explain soil pH levels and Ren identify bird calls. She didn't push, didn't try to force connection, just showed up. On the 3rd Saturday, Ren sat beside her during the water break and showed her how to fold a crane. Ramona's first 7 attempts were disasters. Crumpled paper, backwards folds, wings that wouldn't open. Ren was patient. Like this. See, fold corner to corner first. By attempt number 12, Ramona managed something that vaguely resembled a bird. It's good, Ren said generously. It's terrible, Ramona laughed. But you kept trying. That's what matters. On the 4th Saturday, Piper asked Ramona a direct question. What do you do? For work, I design buildings, Ramona said. Big ones, mostly. Skyscrapers and office complexes and public spaces. Piper considered this. Do you like it? I used to think I did. And now I think I like the idea of it more than the reality. What's the difference? Ramona thought for a moment. The idea of building something important made me feel valuable. The reality was just a lot of meetings and emails and being away from everything that actually mattered. Piper pulled out her sketchbook, flipped to a page covered in architectural drawings. Surprisingly sophisticated for a 7-year-old. I want to design tree houses, she said. But like really cool ones, with multiple levels and zip lines and secret rooms. That sounds amazing, Ramona said honestly. Dad says it's a good dream. It is. Piper looked at her. What was your dream? Before the buildings. Ramona blinked. No one had asked her that in years. I wanted to design homes, not mansions or showpieces. Just beautiful, sustainable homes that normal families could afford and love. Why did you stop? Because somewhere along the way, I forgot that homes are built for people to live in, not to impress other architects. Piper nodded slowly, like you forgot buildings are supposed to be for people. Exactly like that. It was the longest conversation they'd had. When they packed up that day, Piper handed Ramona a drawing. A treehouse design. Elaborate and ambitious and wonderful. In the corner, in careful letters, she'd written, for Ramona, from Piper, not Mom, not even from your daughter. But it was signed, and that felt like progress. On Tuesday of the 5th week, Grant texted Ramona. It was the first direct message he'd sent since the cafe. Library trip Thursday at 4. Girls and I go every week. You're welcome to join if you want. Ramona read the message 17 times, then typed back. I'd like that. The library was small and crowded and smelled like old paper and possibility. Piper made a beeline for the graphic novel section. Ren headed straight for natural sciences. Grant and Ramona stood awkwardly in the children's area, surrounded by parents and kids and the normal life Ramona had never been part of. They've got their routines, Grant said. We'll be here about an hour. There's a coffee shop next door if you want to wait. Can I stay here? Ramona asked. Grant looked surprised. Yeah, of course. So Ramona wandered. She found Ren in the bird section, pulling books that were probably too advanced. for her reading level, but which she studied with fierce concentration. "Did you know," Wren said without looking up, "that chickadees can remember thousands of hiding spots where they store food? Their brains actually grow bigger in the fall to hold all the information." "I didn't know that," Ramona said. "It's so cool." Wren's face lit up when she talked about birds. "They're like tiny geniuses." "What's your favorite bird?" "Right now, varied thrush. They're orange and black, and they sing this one long note that sounds kind of sad but also kind of hopeful." Ramona sat down beside her. "Can you show me what they look like?" Wren pulled out a field guide, flipped to the right page. There, they spent 20 minutes looking at birds. Wren explained migration patterns and territorial behavior and the difference between ravens and crows. Ramona had sat through meetings with world leaders that felt less important than this. When it was time to check out, Wren had 7 books. The librarian smiled. "Somebody's curious." "She always is," Grant said proudly. They went to the coffee shop next door. Ramona bought hot chocolate for the girls, coffee for Grant, tea for herself. Piper pulled out her sketchbook and drew while she drank. Wren read one of her new books, lips moving slightly as she worked through the bigger words. Grant looked at Ramona across the small table. "You didn't have to come." "I wanted to." "Why?" "Because I've missed 5 years. I don't want to miss anymore." "It's not going to be easy," he said quietly. "They're going to test you, push you away, make you prove you're serious. I know, and I can't protect you from that. Can't tell them to forgive you or trust you, or give you a chance. They get to decide." "I know," Ramona repeated, "and whatever they decide, I'll respect it. But I'm not giving up." Grant's expression softened slightly. "Good." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Wren looked up from her book. "Can Ramona come to my school presentation next week?" The table went quiet. Grant looked at Wren. "You don't have to invite her, sweetheart." "I know." Wren looked at Ramona. "But I want to. I'm doing my report on varied thrush. It would be cool if you came." "I would love to," Ramona said. Her voice came out rough. "When is it?" "Friday at 2. I'll be there." Piper glanced up from her sketch. "I have an art show the week after. You can come to that too. If you want." "I want," Ramona said immediately. "Okay then." Piper went back to drawing. But Ramona saw it, the tiniest smile at the corner of her daughter's mouth. Progress. That night, Ramona called her assistant. "We need to find an apartment in Portland. 2-bedroom. Nothing fancy. Just something comfortable and close to Laurelhurst." "You're serious about this," her assistant said. "Completely." "Mr. Tate, I have to ask, are you okay?" "For the first time in 5 years," Ramona said. "I think I might be." She moved into the apartment 3 weeks later. It was small. Nothing like her penthouse in Chicago, with floor-to-ceiling windows and designer everything. This place had creaky floors and a kitchen from the 1980s, and a view of another apartment building. But it was 2 blocks from Ash Street. 2 blocks from her daughter's. Ramona furnished it simply. A couch, a bed, a desk for the remote work she'd need to do, a kitchen table for 4, just in case. On her second day in the apartment, there was a knock at the door. She opened it to find Wren holding a small potted plant. "Dad says you're supposed to bring bread and salt when someone moves in, but we didn't have salt, so I brought you this instead. It's a succulent. They're really hard to kill." Ramona took the pot carefully. "Thank you. It's perfect. Do you want help unpacking?" "I would love help." Wren came inside, looked around the sparse apartment, and nodded approvingly. "It's nice. Cozy." They spent an hour together. Wren helped organize kitchen supplies and offered opinions on where furniture should go, and talked about everything and nothing. When Grant came to pick her up, he stood in the doorway and looked at Ramona with something that might have been approval. "She did good," Wren announced. "Her plates are organized by size." "That's very impressive," Grant said seriously. After they left, Ramona sat in her new apartment, surrounded by boxes and potential, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The school presentation was in a classroom that smelled like crayons and poster paint and childhood. Ramona sat in a too-small chair in the back row, surrounded by other parents who belonged here, who had been to every presentation and parent-teacher conference and school event for years. She was the stranger, the interloper. But when Wren stood at the front of the classroom, holding her poster board covered in pictures of varied thrush, she looked directly at Ramona and smiled. My report is on the varied thrush, Wren began. They live in the Pacific Northwest, and they're one of the prettiest birds we have. She talked about habitat and diet and migration. She played a recording of their call, that single long note that did sound sad and hopeful at the same time. She was confident and knowledgeable and absolutely wonderful. When she finished, the class clapped. The teacher praised her thoroughness, and Wren walked straight to Ramona. "Did I do good?" "You did amazing," Ramona said. "I'm so proud of you." The words just came out, natural and true. Wren hugged her, quick and impulsive, then ran off to join her classmates. But Ramona sat in that too small chair, surrounded by strangers with tears streaming down her face, because her daughter had hugged her and called her to watch, and seemed proud that she came. Piper's art show was different. It was in the school gymnasium, transformed into a gallery of children's work. Paintings and drawings and sculptures made from pasta and popsicle sticks. Piper's section was in the far corner. Ramona found it and stopped breathing. The entire display was portraits, faces, done in pencil and charcoal and colored pencil, and every single one was Ramona. Ramona at different ages, different expressions, different imagined moments. The placard beside the display read, "The Mother I Never Knew" by Piper Holloway. Grant appeared beside Ramona. "She didn't tell me what her project was," he said quietly. "I saw it for the first time today." They stood together, staring at a 7-year-old's interpretation of loss and longing and inherited memory. One portrait showed Ramona holding a baby. Another showed her walking away, back turned. Another showed her face half in shadow, half in light. The final portrait was different. It showed Ramona in a garden, dirt on her hands, smiling. The caption underneath said, "Maybe." Piper approached slowly. She looked nervous, defiant, vulnerable. "Do you like it?" she asked Ramona. Ramona knelt down to her level. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I drew you lots of times. Over the years. Dad didn't know. I just did." "Why?" Piper shrugged. "Because you were missing, and drawing you made you feel less missing. I'm here now," Ramona said. "I know." Piper looked at the portraits. "That's why the last one is maybe. Because maybe you'll stay. Maybe you won't. I don't know yet." "That's fair." Piper nodded. Then she walked away to talk to her teacher. But Grant squeezed Ramona's shoulder. "She's letting you in," he said, "in her own way." "I know. That's more than I expected this fast." "Me too." They spent an hour at the art show. Ramona talked to other parents, introduced herself as a friend of the family when people asked how she knew Piper. But when they were leaving, Piper ran up and grabbed Ramona's hand. "You can tell people you're my mom if you want. I don't mind." "Are you sure?" "Yeah." Piper swung their joined hands. "I mean, you are, even if it's complicated." Ramona's vision blurred. "Okay, thank you." That night, the four of them went out for pizza. A small place near the school with plastic booths and a jukebox that only played 80s music. It was loud and chaotic and perfect. Wren spilled her soda. Piper argued about pineapple on pizza being a crime. Grant's hand shook while cutting his slice, and Piper helped without being asked. And Ramona sat there in a sticky booth in a mediocre pizza place and felt happier than she'd ever felt in a 5-star restaurant. "This," she thought, "this is what I walked away from, and this is what I'm fighting to keep." As they were leaving, Wren grabbed Ramona's hand on one side. Piper grabbed the other. They walked to the car like that, connected. Grant caught Ramona's eye over the girls' heads. He smiled, a real smile, the kind she remembered from before, from when they were young and in love and building dreams together. "Maybe," that smile said, "maybe we can find our way back." Ramona smiled back through tears. Maybe. 2 months into living in Portland, Ramona's life had transformed in ways she couldn't have imagined. She woke up early to video calls with her team at Verdant Horizon, managed projects remotely, consulted on designs, but she was no longer the woman who worked 16-hour days and slept in her office. Now she had school pickups to make, garden work on Saturdays, library trips on Thursdays, homework help on Tuesday and Wednesday evenings, piano recitals, and parent-teacher conferences and grocery shopping with a list Wren had organized by store layout for maximum efficiency. She was becoming part of their routine, part of their life. It wasn't always smooth. There were hard days Days when Piper shut down and wouldn't talk to anyone, especially not Ramona. Days when Ren had nightmares and called for Dad, never for Ramona. Days when Grant's Parkinson's was bad, and his pride made him snap at offers of help. Days when Ramona felt like an outsider all over again, when she wondered if she was delusional to think she could ever really belong in this family she'd abandoned. But then there would be good days too. Days when Piper showed Ramona a new drawing without being asked. When Ren explained the difference between juvenile and adult bird plumage while they walked to school. When Grant asked Ramona's opinion on a botanical illustration he was working on. When all four of them cooked dinner together, chaotic and messy and full of laughter. Those days made the hard days bearable. On a Tuesday evening in early March, Ramona was helping Piper with math homework at the kitchen table while Grant and Ren worked on a science project in the living room. Piper was frustrated, erasing her work for the third time. "I hate fractions," she muttered. "They're tricky," Ramona agreed. "But you're close. Look, if you have 1/2 and you add 1/4, what do you need to do first?" "I don't know. Make them the same bottom number." "Exactly. So what's a number that both 2 and 4 go into?" Piper thought hard. 4. Right. So you convert 1/2 into 2/4. Perfect. Now add 2/4 and 1/4. 3/4. Piper wrote it down, then looked up. "Did you just trick me into understanding?" Ramona grinned. "Maybe. That's sneaky." Piper smiled back. "I like it." From the living room, Ren called out, "Dad, your hand is shaking too much. Let me hold the glue." Ramona glanced over, saw Grant trying to attach something to their project poster, saw his right hand trembling badly, glue going everywhere except where it was supposed to. Her heart clenched, but Ren just took the glue bottle calmly, held the pieces steady, worked alongside her father like it was the most natural thing in the world. Grant met Ramona's eyes across the rooms. She saw the frustration there, the helplessness, the fear of what was coming, but also acceptance and gratitude for daughters who loved him through it. Later, after the girls were in bed, Ramona and Grant sat on the front porch. It had become their routine. After homework and dinner and bedtime stories, they would sit outside and talk while the neighborhood settled into quiet. "How are you really doing?" Ramona asked. Grant flexed his right hand. "Some days are better than others. This was a worse one. I'm sorry. It is what it is." He leaned back in his chair. "The girls are amazing about it. Sometimes I worry I'm putting too much on them. They love you. They want to help. I know. But they're 7. They should be worrying about spelling tests and playground drama, not whether their dad remembered his medication." "You're doing an incredible job with them," Ramona said softly. "We're doing an incredible job." Grant looked at her. "You've been here almost 3 months now, showing up every day, helping with homework, coming to school things, being present. That matters. I should have been here from the beginning, but you're here now, and they see that." He paused. "I see that." Ramona's heart beat faster. "What do you see?" "Someone who's trying, someone who's changed, someone who's fighting like hell to be the person they needed 5 years ago. I'm still terrified I'll mess it up." "You will," Grant said. "We all do. I mess up constantly, but you stay and try again. That's what parenting is." They sat in silence for a while. Then Grant said, "I think we should tell them who you are. Officially." Ramona turned to him. "Are you sure?" "Ren already knows, I think. She's too perceptive not to have figured it out." And Piper, he gestured toward the house. Her art show was basically titled, "This is my mom." "I think they're ready for the conversation. What if they're angry? Then we deal with that together." "Together," Ramona repeated. She liked the sound of that word. The conversation happened on a Saturday afternoon in the garden. All 4 of them were planting spring bulbs, preparing beds for tulips and daffodils that would bloom in a few months. Grant cleared his throat. "Girls, we need to talk about something." Both Piper and Ren looked up, immediately alert to the serious tone. "You know how I've told you that your mom was someone who loved you very much but couldn't stay when you were babies," Grant began. Piper and Ren nodded. "Well, Ramona is your mom." Silence. Ren looked at Ramona, tilted her head. "I thought maybe she was." Piper said nothing, just stared. Ramona knelt in the dirt, eye level with both girls. "I know this is confusing, and probably scary, and you might be angry, which is completely fair, but it's true. I gave birth to you both 7 years ago. And then I left because I was very sick in my mind, and I was afraid I would hurt you. You left us, Piper said. Her voice was flat. Yes. For 5 years. Yes. And now you're back. Yes. Why now? Piper demanded. Why not last year? Or the year before? Or any time when we actually needed you? Ramona felt the words like a knife. Because I was a coward. Because I thought you were better off without me. Because I built walls around the pain instead of dealing with it. And I'm sorrier than I can ever say. Piper's eyes filled with tears. We needed you. I used to draw you because you weren't there. Ren used to ask Dad where you were, and he would get this sad look and say you were somewhere you needed to be. But you weren't somewhere you needed to be. You were just gone. You're absolutely right, Ramona said, her own tears falling now. And I can't fix that. I can't give you back the birthdays I missed or the nightmares I was in, that therefore or the million small moments I should have been part of. All I can do is promise to be here now, for every moment going forward. How do we know you won't leave again? Piper asked. Ramona looked at Grant, then back at the girls. Because I love you, and I'm not afraid anymore. The thing that scared me away was being your mother and feeling like I'd fail. But I've learned that failing and trying again is better than not trying at all. Ren spoke for the first time. Is that why you came to my presentation? And Piper's art show? And the garden every week? Yes. Because you're our mom. Because I'm your mom. And I want to act like it. If you'll let me. Ren walked over and hugged Ramona, buried her face in Ramona's shoulder. Ramona wrapped her arms around her daughter and tried not to sob. Piper stood apart, arms crossed, face stormy. I'm really mad at you, she said. I know, like really, really mad. That's fair. But Piper's voice cracked. But I also really wanted you to come back, and now you're here, and I don't know how to feel about it. You can feel both things, Grant said gently. You can be mad and glad at the same time. Feelings are complicated. Piper looked at Ramona. If I let you be my mom, will you stay forever? Promise. I promise, Ramona said. No matter what. Even when things are hard. Even when you hate me. Even when I make mistakes. I'm staying. Piper walked over slowly, stood in front of Ramona, stared at her for a long moment. Then she hugged her too, and Ramona held both her daughters and cried and felt Grant's hand on her shoulder. They stayed like that in the garden, surrounded by earth and growing things and possibility, and became a family. Not the family they were supposed to be 5 years ago, but the family they had fought to become now. And maybe, Ramona thought, that was even more precious. The weeks following the garden revelation were both easier and harder than Ramona expected. Easier because the secret was out. No more pretending to be just Ramona. She was mom now, at least technically. Harder because knowing and accepting were two very different things. Ren adapted quickly. Within days, she was saying mom casually, like it had always been that way. Mom, can you help me with my science homework? Mom, look at this robin's nest. Mom, Dad forgot his pills again. But Piper still called her Ramona, not cruelly, just carefully, like she was protecting herself from getting too attached to something that might disappear. Ramona didn't push. She just showed up. Every single day. School pickup, dinner help, weekend garden work, late night talks with Grant on the porch while the neighborhood slept. She was learning them, their rhythms and routines, their fears and favorites. She learned that Piper couldn't sleep without her nightlight shaped like a crescent moon, that Ren organized her clothes by color spectrum and got genuinely distressed if things were out of order, that Grant's tremors were always worse when he was stressed or tired, that all three of them loved terrible puns and would groan dramatically while secretly enjoying them. She was building a life here, a real one. Her Chicago penthouse sold in early April. Ramona barely blinked at the closing documents. That glass tower overlooking Lake Michigan felt like it belonged to someone else entirely. The money went into trust funds for Piper and Ren. College, travel, whatever they might need. Verdant Horizon continued without her at the helm. Her former VP sent occasional updates. The company was fine. Thriving even. Turns out she'd been less essential than she thought. The realization didn't sting the way she expected. Instead, it felt like freedom. One Tuesday in late April, Ramona's phone rang during school pickup. The twins' school. But it wasn't the attendance office. Miss Tate. The voice was tense, professional, but strained. "This is Principal Morrison at Laurelhurst Elementary. We need you to come to the school immediately. There's been an incident involving Piper." Ramona's heart dropped. "Is she hurt?" "No. But she's been in an altercation with another student. Can you come now?" "I'm pulling up right now. I'll be there in 2 minutes." Ramona abandoned her spot in the pickup line and parked illegally. She ran into the building, signed in with shaking hands, and followed the office assistant to the principal's office. Piper sat in a chair outside the office, arms crossed, defiant. Her knuckles were scraped. Her hair was wild. Her face was streaked with angry tears. A boy sat 3 chairs down, holding an ice pack to his nose. His mother stood beside him, looking furious. "What happened?" Ramona asked, kneeling in front of Piper. "He deserved it," Piper said through gritted teeth. "Piper? He was being mean to Maya, saying horrible things about her having 2 moms, called them unnatural, called Maya a freak." Piper's voice shook with fury. "So I punched him." The principal's door opened. "Miss Tate, please come in." "Piper, you too." The office was small and smelled like coffee and stress. Principal Morrison was a black woman in her 50s with kind eyes and zero tolerance for nonsense. "Piper, do you want to explain what happened?" she asked. Piper sat rigid. "Tyler was bullying Maya Rodriguez at lunch. He said her family was weird and wrong because she has 2 moms. He said mean things about gay people, really mean things. And Maya was crying, so I told him to shut up. And he said at least his mom didn't abandon him like mine did." Ramona's breath caught. "So I punched him," Piper finished. "Right in the nose." Principal Morrison looked at Ramona. "We have a zero-tolerance policy on physical violence. Normally this would result in a 3-day suspension." "I understand," Ramona said quietly. "However," the principal folded her hands. "Context matters. Tyler has been spoken to before about his language toward other students. And while I cannot condone Piper's response, I understand the provocation." She looked at Piper. "Violence is never the answer, but standing up for your friend was brave. Next time you get a teacher, you don't handle it yourself. Understood?" Piper nodded. "1 day in school suspension. You'll spend tomorrow in the reflection room, and you'll write an apology for using physical violence, not for defending your friend, but for the method you chose." "Okay," Piper whispered. "And Tyler is suspended for 3 days for his bullying behavior. This isn't your fault, Piper, but you still made a choice that had consequences." They left the office. Piper was silent all the way to the car. Ramona opened the back door. Piper climbed in, still not speaking. Ramona got in the driver's seat, but she didn't start the car. "Are you mad at me?" Piper asked finally. Her voice was small. Ramona turned around. "Tell me what happened." "All of it." "I told you. The part about what Tyler said, about me." Piper's face crumpled. He said at least his mom didn't abandon him, that my mom left because I wasn't good enough. That's why you didn't come back for so long." Ramona's heart shattered. "And that made me so angry," Piper continued. "Because it's true, you did leave, and part of me still doesn't understand why. And I hate when people say it out loud because it makes it real again." Ramona unbuckled and climbed into the back seat, pulled Piper into her arms. "Listen to me," she said fiercely. "You were absolutely good enough. You and Ren were perfect. The leaving was never about you. It was about me being broken in a way that had nothing to do with how incredible you were." Piper sobbed into her shoulder. "And you were brave to defend your friend," Ramona continued. "What Tyler said about Maya's family was cruel and wrong. You were right to stand up to him, but I shouldn't have hit him. No, you shouldn't have. But you know what? What? Courage doesn't always look like fighting. Sometimes it looks like walking away. Sometimes it looks like getting help." Ramona pulled back to look at Piper. "Like what I did. What I did wasn't courage. Walking away wasn't brave. You know what's brave? What you and Ren did, surviving without me. What your dad did, staying when his body made everything hard. What I'm trying to do now, showing up even when I'm terrified you'll reject me." "I'm scared you'll leave again," Piper whispered. "I know, and I can't promise I'll be perfect, but I can promise I'll stay, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Piper hugged her tighter. "I love you, Mom." It was the first time she'd said it, the first time she'd called her mom. I love you too, sweetheart, Ramona said through tears. So much it scares me. They stayed like that in the school parking lot, holding each other, until Piper's breathing steadied. Are you going to tell Dad? Piper asked. Yes, because that's what parents do. We're a team. Is he going to be mad? He's going to be proud of you for standing up for someone, and worried because he loves you. And he'll make you understand why we can't solve problems with our fists. But mad? No, not really. That evening, all four of them sat down together. Grant listened to Piper's story, his expression serious. I'm proud of you for defending Maya, he said. And I'm glad you're learning that actions have consequences. Tyler got 3 days, Piper said. I only got 1, because Principal Morrison is fair, Grant said. But here's the thing, sweetheart. You can't control what other people say about our family, and you can't punch everyone who says something cruel. Why not? Piper asked. Because your hands are for creating beautiful things, Ramona said, not for hurting people, even people who deserve it. Ren, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. Maya's mom sent you a thank you card. It came in the mail today. She held out an envelope. Inside was a note. Thank you for defending our daughter. We're grateful Maya has a friend like Piper. Piper read it 3 times, then carefully placed it in her sketchbook. I'm still sorry I punched him, she said. Good, Grant said. That means you learned something. 2 weeks later, on a Sunday afternoon in early May, Ren made an announcement. She stood in the living room, holding a large box, vibrating with excitement. I finished, she said. Grant looked up from his botanical illustration. Ramona looked up from her laptop. Piper looked up from her sketchbook. Finished what? Grant asked. Ren opened the box. Inside were 1,000 origami cranes. Green, blue, gold, silver, pink, purple, a constellation of paper wishes. My 1,000 cranes, Ren said. I folded the last one this morning. The family gathered around. The cranes were extraordinary, each one perfect and delicate and unique. What did you wish for? Grant asked softly. Ren looked at Ramona, then at Piper, then at her dad. I don't need to wish anymore. It already came true. What was the wish? Ramona asked, though part of her already knew. That we'd be a family, a real one. Ren smiled. That Mom would come back and stay forever. Ramona couldn't speak. And you did, Ren continued. So the wish worked. What happens now that your wish came true? Piper asked. I make a new wish, Ren said. For someone else? Whose wish? Ren looked at Grant. Dad's. That his hands keep working long enough to finish teaching me everything he knows about drawing and plants and being brave even when you're scared. Grant pulled Ren into a hug, his eyes wet. That afternoon, they hung all 1,000 cranes in the garden. Grant had been working on a structure, a willow arbor he'd woven himself, with climbing roses beginning to take hold. He'd called it the 1,000 Crane Arbor, anticipating this moment. Now they strung the cranes on fishing line and hung them from the curved branches. The neighbors came to help. Maya and her moms. Other families from school. Friends from the community garden. It took hours. But by evening, the arbor was transformed. 1,000 paper cranes turned slowly in the breeze, creating a canopy of color, hope, and wishes fulfilled. Someone brought champagne and sparkling cider. Someone else brought cookies. It became an impromptu celebration. A woman asked Ren, what happens now that your wish came true? Ren pointed to Grant. I start folding for someone else's wish, for Dad, that his hands keep working. The garden fell quiet. Everyone there knew about Grant's Parkinson's, had watched him work through the shaking hands, the bad days, the gradual progression. Grant knelt down to Ren's level. Sweetheart, my hands might stop working someday. The doctors say that's likely. I know, Ren said. But maybe if I fold enough cranes, we'll get more time. Maybe, Grant said gently. But even if we don't, you've already given me everything I need. You and your sister and... He glanced at Ramona. And your mom. You're all the wish I need. That night, after everyone left, the 4 of them sat under the crane arbor. The garden lights twinkled. The paper birds cast dancing shadows. This is perfect, Piper said, leaning against Ramona's shoulder. It really is, Ramona agreed. She looked at Grant across the small space. He was watching her with an expression she hadn't seen in years. Soft, open, full of possibility. I need to tell you something, he said. Ramona's heart jumped. Okay, not here, Walk with me?" They left the girls reading under the arbor and walked to the front porch, their evening talking spot. Grant pulled something from his pocket. A small velvet box. Ramona's breath stopped. "I bought this 7 years ago," Grant said, "the day I was going to propose. But you were 8 months pregnant and exhausted, and I chickened out. I was going to do it after the babies were born, when we'd settled into our new life together." He opened the box. Inside was a simple silver band, engraved with tiny botanical illustrations. Roses, ferns, forget-me-nots. "I never got the chance," Grant continued. "And then you left. And I carried this ring for 5 years, not sure why I couldn't throw it away." "Grant, I'm not asking you to go back," he said quickly. "I'm not asking you to erase what happened or pretend the pain wasn't real. I'm asking if you want to go forward, differently, honestly." Ramona's eyes filled. "Are you proposing?" "Not yet." He smiled. "I'm asking if you'd be open to the idea. Someday, when we're ready, when the girls are ready." "I've been ready since I saw you at the airport," Ramona whispered. "That was 6 months ago. Feels like yesterday, and a lifetime ago, at the same time." Grant took her hand, the one that trembled. "I have Parkinson's. It's going to get worse. There will be hard days. Days when I can't button my own shirt or hold a pencil or do 100 things I used to take for granted." "I know." "And you're still here." "I'm still here." "Why?" "Because I love you," Ramona said. "I never stopped, even when I left, even when I was too broken to admit it. I loved you, and the girls, and the life we could have had. And I'm not afraid anymore. The thing that scared me away was being a mother and feeling like I'd fail. But I've learned that failing and trying again is better than not trying at all." Grant kissed her then, soft and careful and full of 5 years of grief and 6 months of healing and a future that was finally possible. When they pulled apart, they heard whispering from the garden. Both girls were peeking around the corner of the house, trying to look casual and failing completely. "Were you spying?" Grant called. "No," they said in unison. Unconvincingly. "Come here," Ramona said. They approached slowly, grinning. "I have something I want to do," Grant said. "But I need your permission." "Okay," Piper said cautiously. Grant knelt down, carefully, his balance not what it used to be. Ramona steadied him. "I want to ask your mom to marry me," he said. "For real this time. Not just a private conversation, but a real proposal. With all of us together. Would that be okay with you?" Ren nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, yes, yes, yes." Piper looked at Ramona. "Are you going to say yes? If he asks, absolutely. And you won't leave again?" "Never." "Then it's okay with me," Piper said. Grant looked up at Ramona. "I was going to plan this whole thing. Make it special. But honestly, right now, in our garden, with our daughters here, this feels perfect." He took Ramona's hand. "Ramona Tate, you left when you were drowning. You came back when you learned to breathe. You've spent 6 months proving what I already knew, that underneath the fear was a woman capable of extraordinary love." His voice shook. "You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. We're both broken in different ways. But I think our broken pieces fit together better than we ever did whole." He held up the ring. "Will you marry me? Not to fix the past, but to build a different future. With me, and these 2 incredible girls who've already claimed you as their mom?" Ramona was crying too hard to speak. She nodded. Grant slipped the ring on her finger. Perfect fit, like it had been waiting 7 years for this moment. The girls cheered and crashed into them, and they all ended up in a pile on the porch steps, laughing and crying and holding each other. "Does this mean you're getting married?" Ren asked. "Yes," Ramona said. "Can we be in the wedding?" Piper asked. "You're not just in it," Grant said. "You're the whole reason for it." They sat together on the porch as evening deepened into night, making plans, dreaming out loud, being a family. And Ramona thought, This is what I was supposed to be building all along. Not skyscrapers, not empires, just this, just home." 6 months later, on a cold November morning, exactly 1 year after, Ramona first saw them at the airport. They gathered at the courthouse. The wedding party was small, intimate, just the people who mattered. Grant's sister, Caroline, who had helped with the girls during the hardest years. Ramona's assistant turned friend, Jennifer, who had supported her through the chaos of changing her entire life. two neighbors from Ash Street who had become family, Maya's moms, a handful of friends from the community garden, and at the center, Ramona, Grant, Piper, and Wren. Ramona wore a simple cream dress. Grant wore his good jacket, the one Ramona had taken to a tailor to repair the frayed cuffs. The girls wore matching flower crowns they'd woven themselves from garden herbs and winter berries. The judge was a kind woman in her 60s who'd clearly performed thousands of ceremonies but still got emotional at each one. "We're gathered here today," she began. But before she could continue, Piper raised her hand. Everyone froze. "I object," Piper said solemnly. Ramona's heart stopped. "To what?" the judge asked, confused. Piper looked at Ramona and Grant. "To waiting this long. You should have done this years ago." Laughter rippled through the room. Relief flooded Ramona's chest. "You're absolutely right," Grant said. "We should have." The ceremony continued. Traditional vows, promises made before witnesses, the exchange of rings, Ramona's botanical band, and a matching one for Grant. Then Ramona asked to say something. She turned to Piper and Wren. "I know I'm marrying your dad today," she said, "but I want to make promises to you too." Both girls looked up at her with wide eyes. "Piper, I promise to always tell you the truth, even when it's hard, to support your art and your fierce protection of people you love, to remember that your anger comes from a place of deep caring, and to honor that." Piper's eyes welled up. "Wren, I promise to notice the small things you notice, to listen to your quiet wisdom, to fold cranes with you whenever you ask, to remember that gentle doesn't mean weak, it means strong enough to be kind." Wren gripped Ramona's hand. "To both of you," Ramona's voice broke, "I promise to stay. On hard days and easy days, when you love me and when you don't like me very much. When I mess up, and I will mess up, I promise to apologize and try again. I'm your mom now, and that's forever." Both girls were crying. Half the room was crying. "We have something too," Piper said. She and Wren pulled out folded papers from their pockets. Piper read first. "I promise to trust you, even when I'm scared. To let you be my mom, even when it feels weird. To remember you came back, not just that you left. To give you the same second chances I'd want someone to give me." Wren read next. "I promise to keep making cranes for your wishes, and Dad's wishes, and everyone's wishes. To teach you about birds and help you learn to fold paper and hug you, even when you're stressed about work. To believe in our family, even on the hard days." There wasn't a dry eye in the courthouse. The judge had to pause to compose herself before she could continue. "By the power vested in me by the state of Oregon," she said, voice thick with emotion, "I now pronounce you married. You may kiss." Grant and Ramona kissed. The girls sandwiched them in a hug. The small gathering applauded. The court reporter abandoned all professionalism and cried openly into a tissue. Afterward, they had a reception in the garden. November in Portland was cold but clear. The sky impossibly blue. The 1,000-crane arbor was now covered in white climbing roses that Grant had grafted specifically for this day. The paper cranes had been carefully preserved and rehung, creating a canopy of color against the winter garden. Neighbors brought food. Friends brought flowers. Someone set up a speaker and played music. It wasn't fancy. There was no champagne tower or string quartet or designer cake. Just homemade dishes and grocery store flowers and a playlist of songs that made people want to dance. Perfect. The first dance was all four of them, dancing under the arbor while everyone watched and smiled. Then, Wren gave a speech. She'd written something elaborate, covered in careful handwriting and cross-outs and revisions. But when she stood up in front of everyone, she folded the paper and put it in her pocket. "I don't need this," she said. "I just want to say, some things break, and some things grow back stronger in the broken places." She looked at Ramona. "Mom taught me that." Ramona pressed her hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. "Our family was broken," Wren continued. "But now it's not. It's different than it would have been if nothing bad happened. But I think it's stronger, because we all chose to be here. We all chose each other." She raised her cup of sparkling cider. "To choosing each other. To choosing each other," everyone echoed. Grant squeezed Ramona's hand. She squeezed back. Later, as the sun began to set and the garden lights twinkled on, someone asked Ramona what she would wish for now. She looked at Grant helping Piper hang more decorations, his hands shaking but capable. At Wren explaining bird migration to a fascinated neighbor. At the garden they'd built together. At the community that had embraced her despite everything. "Nothing," she said honestly. "I have everything I never knew I needed." As evening deepened, Ramona found herself alone for a moment by the 1,000-crane arbor. She thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, standing in O'Hare Airport, watching her family walk away, believing she'd lost them forever. She thought about the fear that had driven her away, the hollow emptiness, the certainty that she would fail. She had failed in so many ways, but she'd also come back, and kept coming back, every single day. "Hey," Grant said, appearing beside her. "You okay?" "I'm perfect," Ramona said. "How are your hands?" "Shaky, but functioning." He held one up. The tremor was visible, but not severe. "Good day." "Good day," she agreed. They stood together, watching their daughters chase each other through the garden, laughing. "Thank you," Ramona said. "For what?" "For giving me a second chance, for letting me be here, for—" Her voice broke. "For not giving up on the idea that I could be better." "You did that yourself," Grant said. "I just held the door open. You walked through it." Piper ran up, breathless. "Mom." "Ren says we can release some of the cranes into the sky. Can we?" "Are you sure?" Ramona asked. "You worked so hard on them." "That's why," Ren said, joining them. "They were wishes. Now we let them fly." So as the sun set over Portland, over their garden, over their family, they released 100 paper cranes into the November sky. They swirled upward on the wind, catching the last light, a spiral of color against darkening blue. Everyone watched in silence until the cranes were too small to see. "Where do you think they'll go?" Piper asked. "Wherever they're needed," Ren said. "To other people who need to make wishes." Ramona pulled both girls close. Grant wrapped his arms around all three of them. And standing there, in the garden they'd built, under the arbor they'd created, surrounded by love they'd fought for, Ramona Tate finally understood what it meant to be home. 1 year later, the garden had grown exponentially. What started as Grant's small therapeutic project had become a community gathering place. Neighbors contributed beds. Kids from the elementary school came for science lessons. The local conservation group held meetings in the greenhouse Grant and Ramona had expanded together. The 1,000-crane arbor was now famous in the neighborhood, featured in Portland Garden magazine, visited by tourists, photographed constantly. But for the Holloway Tate family, it was just home. On a Sunday afternoon in November, 2 years since that airport moment, Ramona and Grant co-taught a botanical illustration workshop in the garden. Piper, now 9, served as a teaching assistant, helping younger kids with basic sketching techniques. Ren, also 9, led bird watching tours every Saturday morning. She'd identified 147 species in Portland so far, and had started a detailed catalog with drawings and notes. Grant's Parkinson's had progressed, but slowly. Some days were better than others. He developed adaptations, voice-to-text software for writing, adaptive grips for his drawing tools, a routine of medication and physical therapy that kept him functional. The tremor in his right hand was more pronounced, but he'd learned to draw left-handed too. His illustrations were different now, looser, more expressionistic, but still beautiful. And Ramona had started a nonprofit called Growing Through, therapeutic gardens for families dealing with chronic illness. She'd given a TEDx talk about it 6 months ago, brought Piper and Ren on stage with her. The video went viral, not because of her architecture credentials, but because of the raw honesty about mental health and abandonment and finding your way back. Verdant horizon still existed, but it no longer defined her. She consulted occasionally, took projects that interested her, but her real work was here, in the garden, with her family. That evening, after the workshop ended and the students left, the family had dinner together. Normal chaos. Piper and Ren arguing about whose turn it was to set the table. Grant's hand shaking as he cut vegetables, Ramona stepping in to help without making it a thing. The doorbell rang during cleanup. Ramona answered it. A young woman stood there, pregnant, maybe 7 months. Her eyes were red from crying. "I'm sorry to bother you," she said. "I saw your TED Talk about postpartum psychosis, about leaving your children because you were afraid you'd hurt them." Ramona's heart clenched. "Come in." The woman's name was Sarah. She was terrified, having intrusive thoughts about her unborn baby, afraid to tell her partner because what if they took the baby away? What if she was a monster? Ramona sat with her at the kitchen table. Grant made tea. The girls quietly did homework nearby, but close enough to listen. "You're not a monster," Ramona said. "You're sick. There's a difference. But what if I hurt my baby? Then you get help now. Before that can happen, Ramona took her hand. I didn't. I waited until after, and it was almost too late. But you're here, asking for help. That's the bravest thing you can do. She gave Sarah the number for a perinatal mental health specialist, the contact for a support group, her own phone number. Call me, Ramona said. Anytime. I mean it. Sarah left with resources and hope and the knowledge that she wasn't alone. After she'd gone, Grant found Ramona standing in the garden, looking at the crane arbor. You okay? He asked. I was her, Ramona said. 2 years ago. Terrified and alone and certain I'd destroyed everything. But you didn't. But I did, and then I built it back. She turned to him. That's what I want other people to know, that you can break everything and still find your way home. You're going to help a lot of people. Grant said. I hope so. They stood together in the garden, lights twinkling, daughters visible. Through the kitchen window, living their ordinary, precious life. Do you ever regret it? Grant asked. Giving up the company, the recognition, all of it. Not for a second, Ramona said. That life was about being seen. This life is about being known, and being known is so much better. Later that night, after the girls were asleep, Ramona sat at her desk and wrote, not a business proposal or architectural plans, a letter to the mother who's afraid. I see you. I was you, standing in a hospital room, looking at your perfect baby, feeling absolutely nothing, terrified of your own emptiness, certain you'll fail. Maybe you will. Maybe you'll leave. Maybe you'll make the worst mistake of your life. But here's what I learned. It's never too late to come back. It's never too late to get help. It's never too late to become the person your children need you to be. Your past doesn't have to define your future. Your mistakes don't have to be your ending. I lost 5 years with my daughters. 5 years I can never get back. But I got every year after. And that's not nothing. That's everything. If you're reading this in a dark place, please hear me. Get help. Tell someone. Reach out. Your children need you alive and healing, not perfect and drowning. And if you've already left, if you're living with that guilt and shame and certainty that it's too late, it's not. Take the first step. Make the call. Send the message. It won't be easy. My daughters didn't trust me immediately. The oldest took months to call me mom. They had every right to reject me. But they gave me a chance. And I earned it. One garden session, one homework help, one promise kept at a time. You can too. Because here's what I know now. Love isn't just a feeling. It's 1,000 small decisions to show up, even when you're terrified. Family isn't perfect people. It's imperfect people choosing each other anyway. And coming home doesn't mean erasing the past. It means building a different future. 5 years. I lost 5 years, but I gained the rest of my life. So can you, with hope. Ramona. She posted it on her blog, sent it to parent mental health organizations, put it out into the world. Within hours, the comments started coming. Hundreds of them. Mothers who understood. Fathers who'd struggled. Families who'd been broken and rebuilt. Thank you for sharing this. I needed to hear this today. I'm calling my daughter tomorrow. I'm getting help. I'm not giving up. Ramona read every single one. Responded when she could. Connected people with resources. This, she thought, this is what I was meant to build. Not towers. Not empires. Bridges. Between broken people and hope. Between shame and healing. Between lost and found. The next morning, Ren appeared in Ramona's doorway holding a box. I made something for you, she said. Inside were 100 new origami cranes, all different shades of green. What are these for? Ramona asked. For the people who read your letter, Ren said. So they know someone's wishing for them too. Ramona pulled her daughter close. You are the wisest person I know. I learned from you, Ren said simply. That afternoon, they photographed the cranes and Ramona added them to her blog post. My daughter made these for you. 100 wishes that you find your way home. The response was overwhelming. People shared their stories, their struggles, their small victories and devastating setbacks and determination to keep trying. And Ramona showed up for all of it, responding, encouraging, building a community of parents who understood that love and mental illness could coexist, that asking for help was strength, that coming back was always an option. One Saturday in December, the garden hosted its first official Growing Through event. 20 families dealing with chronic illness, cancer, MS, Parkinson's, ALS, mental health conditions. They planted winter bulbs together, learned about garden therapy, shared stories, cried, laughed, connected. Piper and Wren helped the other kids plant seeds and told them about the 1,000 Crane Arbor, and explained that wishes don't always look like you expect, but they can still come true. Grant taught a simple botanical drawing class, his shaking hands creating beautiful imperfect lines that somehow made the flowers more real. And Ramona watched it all, her garden, her family, her purpose, and felt a peace she'd never experienced in any boardroom or awards ceremony. This was the work that mattered. This was the life she was meant to live. As the event wound down, a woman approached Ramona. She looked familiar, but Ramona couldn't place her. "You don't remember me," the woman said. "We met briefly at a conference 5 years ago. You were keynoting. I asked you how you balanced career and family." Ramona did remember now. She'd given some polished answer about scheduling and priorities. "You told me you made it work," the woman continued. "That successful women could have it all." "I'm sorry," Ramona said quietly. "That was a lie." "I know," the woman smiled. "But watching you now, building this, being honest about the struggle, that's the truth I needed. Thank you." She walked away, leaving Ramona standing in her garden, surrounded by the family and community. She'd almost lost, finally understanding the difference between success and significance. That night, the 4 of them sat under the Crane Arbor, bundled in blankets against the December cold. "Best year ever," Piper declared. "Last year was pretty good too," Wren said. "That's when Mom married Dad. Both years were good," Grant said. "Different kinds of good." Ramona looked at each of them. Grant with his trembling hands and patient heart. Piper with her fierce protectiveness and artistic soul. Wren with her gentle wisdom and endless curiosity. "I need to tell you something," she said. They all looked at her. 2 years ago, I was standing in an airport, watching you walk away, thinking I'd lost you forever." Her voice shook. "And now I'm here, in a garden we built together, married to your dad, actually being your mom, living a life I never dreamed was possible." "Because you came back," Piper said. "Because you let me," Ramona countered. "You didn't have to give me a chance, but you did. And I will spend the rest of my life being grateful for that." "We're grateful you came back," Wren said simply. Grant pulled them all closer. "I'm grateful for all of us, for second chances, for paper cranes and garden therapy and 9-year-olds who are wiser than most adults. I'm grateful for hot chocolate," Piper said. "Can we have some?" They laughed. The sacred moment breaking into ordinary family life, which was exactly as it should be. As they headed inside, Ramona looked back at the garden one more time, the arbor strung with lights and cranes, the beds prepared for spring, the greenhouse glowing with warmth, and she thought, this is what redemption looks like. Not a grand gesture or dramatic transformation, just showing up, every day, building trust through small acts of presence and care, turning compost, folding cranes, helping with homework, attending presentations, having hard conversations, staying when it would be easier to run. That was love. Not the feeling that swept you away, but the choice you made again and again. The decision to stay. Final reflections. So what do I want you to take away from Ramona's story? That your past doesn't have to define your future. Your mistakes don't have to be your ending. If you've ever walked away from something you loved because you were afraid, if you've ever wondered if it's too late to make things right, if you've ever felt broken beyond repair, this story is for you. Because Ramona teaches us that coming back is harder than leaving, that staying is harder than arriving, but that hard things are often the most worthwhile things. She teaches us that our children are watching, not just our failures, but our courage to face them. That mental illness is real and it's not your fault, but healing is your responsibility. That love isn't just a feeling, it's 1,000 small decisions to show up, even when you're terrified. 5 years. Ramona lost 5 years, but she gained the rest of her life. Piper learned that people can change, that anger can coexist with love, that creating beauty is stronger than destroying in anger. Wren learned that patience and hope can transform impossibility into reality, that wishes require action, not just wishing. Grant learned that strength isn't doing everything alone, it's letting people help. That chronic illness doesn't end love, it transforms it into something deeper. And Ramona Ramona learned that the empire she built meant nothing compared to the family she fought for. That success isn't measured in skylines but in shared moments. That redemption is possible, but it requires showing up again and again, even when rejection seems certain. That being known is infinitely more valuable than being seen. If you're standing at your own airport right now, staring through glass at a life you walked away from, take the first step. Send the text. Make the call. Buy the plane ticket. It won't be easy. There will be hard conversations and broken trust to rebuild, and moments when you want to run again. But stay anyway. Show up anyway. Love anyway. Because as Ren would tell you, some things break, but they can grow back stronger in the broken places. If this story moved you, I hope you'll carry these lessons with you. 1. Mental health struggles don't make you a bad person. They make you human. 2. It's never too late to get help. Reach out today. 3. Children are more resilient than we think, but they need honesty. 4. Forgiveness is a process, not an event. Be patient with yourself and others. 5. Family is built through choice. Biology might start it, but commitment sustains it. 6. Small gestures matter. Turning compost, folding cranes, showing up to school events. 7. You can build a new life, even after you've destroyed the old one. 8. Love is a verb. It's what you do, not just what you feel. 9. Your story isn't over yet. There are more chapters to write. Ramona stood in an airport 2 years ago and thought everything was over, but it was just beginning. Her real life, her real purpose, her real family, the one she built in a garden in Portland with shaking hands and paper cranes, and 2 daughters who taught her that coming home is the bravest journey of all. It's never too late to come home. It's never too late to stay. It's never too late to become the person you were always meant to be. This is Mr. Hearthline, reminding you that your story isn't over yet. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear that redemption is possible, that broken things can be beautiful, that love is always worth fighting for. And remember, somewhere right now, someone is wishing you make it home. Don't give up. Keep going. Your family is waiting.